Howdy folks, and welcome back to WAC. Today I am going to share with you my full stat breakdown and analysis of a new unit introduced in Season 12, the Elite Special Forces, aka the Commando. Sorry for taking so long to get this video out, but as a result I have gotten a good amount of footage, and I have learned even more about these units through using them at the max level. This is the second addition to the list of mercenaries in the game, which can only be spawned at the new province building, the Mercenary Outpost. Despite being a mercenary, these guys are actually quite different from the standard mercs. Let's start off by looking at their abilities. They are stealth and can scout, which is to be expected. At the max level, they can also ignore entrenchment, are amphibious, and even have offensive AA. Having anti-air on a stealth unit is an incredibly unique thing, though it's not very strong, being even weaker than the level 1 mobile anti-air, with the same range of 26. Despite these factors, it actually ends up being an OP ability. While I wasn't able to get a recording of it in action, I did kill 3 EAA and 2 elite bombers in the game that I used the Commandos. What I did is, when I noticed my enemy had their aircraft patrolling in their homeland, I waypointed a safe path under the aircraft, and when I logged back on, they were all shot down. I was so pleased with that result. Quite often, I patrol my aircraft over my homeland cities to not only defend from an attack when I'm asleep, but also to prevent damage from missiles and whatnot. If my enemy has max level commandos, however, I could be severely punished. You could park these guys next to an enemy airfield if they don't have scouts, and every time their aircraft or transports take off or land, you could stack up a lot of damage. Though a competent player may be able to find out where the attacks are coming from, and quickly research level 1 recon vehicles and some throwaway drones to scout your guys. The terrain defense bonuses are actually ludicrous. If you are parked in the center of a mountain or jungle province, not only do you have entrenchment, but you would have 24.5 defense against soft targets and 16 against armor. That is simply insane. In theory, a 10 stack of max level commandos would have 240 defense against soft and 160 against armor. If 9 are paired with a max level Spec Ops commander, it reaches a shocking 306 defense against soft targets and 203 versus armor. This easily defends against any special forces or commandos. Only tanks or missiles can counter this officer stack. I gotta say though, these guys look absolutely goofy. Look at the Stork, he's biking around in the winter with no sleeves on. And a bow and arrow? What, do these guys have the skill equivalent to Hawkeye or something? No offense to Rado, but I'm not the only guy who thinks this. So instead of being a manpower and cash only unit like the original mercenary units, these commandos actually take components and electronics, being a little bit more expensive than special forces. The cash upkeep is quite high, and strangely enough, the manpower upkeep is quite low. Speaking of special forces, let's do some comparisons. You will have to research standard SF in order to research these guys. And I was a bit surprised by this because that ends up being a lot of researching necessary to use them, similar to if you want to use the Elite Frigate. Well, at the base level, these skills mostly match up. You won't have NPC protection with commandos, which isn't going to be an issue in most of your games. It's weird that the commando is faster in cities, but the special forces are quicker in mountains and jungle. Looking at the max level here, this is when the Elite SF get access to the offensive AA. And their attack versus infantry is quite high. They would for sure win in a 1 versus 1 versus normal SF, which is kinda crazy. But here is the hugely negative factor. As of the recording of this video, Elite Special Forces do not have the ability to air assault. I mean, dang, Personally, I use air assault all the freaking time with special forces. Not only is it good for mobility purposes, but it is really nice to have the ability to attack as a helicopter against units with little or no rotary wing defense. When your combined SF and commando stat gets spotted, your standard SF will be able to fly away, but your commandos are going to have to hope their excellent ground speed is enough to flee. Both of these units are rear line, but the specific values are 1 for the standard SF and 2 for the elite SF. These are incredibly low values, so when they are stacked with standard infantry and other ground forces, they will take much less damage than all of the other units. When these two units are stacked with each other, the elite SF will take slightly more damage, which seems fair. But yeah, no air assaulting and different speeds on different terrains makes pairing these together on the battlefield less than optimal. I suppose the devs didn't want them to be too similar though, which is probably why these differences exist. I just wish you didn't need to research standard SF in order to get the elite ones. With the tanks it makes sense, but I think it's an unnecessary limiting factor with this unit. And I apologize for not having very much footage of these guys, but they haven't been out for very long and I don't have some content creator account where I can just gold in new content like this. As we can see, they do have pretty great stats when compared to the other units listed here. High attack, some anti-air, stealthy, fast in cities, but expensive. The cash attack ratio shows us that they aren't cost effective for what they do except in tank defense. Though cost effectiveness isn't really a factor when it comes to special forces anyway. If you are wondering what I mean by the cash attack ratio, it's the combined cost of cash and the minimum cost for the materials to mobilize, divided by the attack or defense stat you are looking at. The lower the number is, the better. Standard SF have the best cash attack against soft targets, being just under 900. The Commandos' cash attack against soft targets is quite high, meaning you could simply produce more units, such as infantry, and overall have a larger army with more attack and HP. But with these fellas, it's all about utilizing their unique capabilities. I haven't mentioned it yet, but these units have the highest view range of any in the game. They even have more view range than the Elite MPT, which is 50. Yeah, if these are allowed in special events and whatnot, high-level players will 100% make use of the extra 15 view range over what the normal SF have. They even have enough view range to comfortably scout recon vehicles without being seen. Despite using the same buildings to spawn as the mercenaries, the only things they share in common are the high cash cost and somewhat high cash upkeep. I can imagine being able to spawn these close to the front line will be very useful, especially if you lose one or two in combat and need to make some reinforcements. Well, I think that just about covers all of the stats and abilities. So what are my thoughts, and are these units worth it? Well, I think the normal special forces will do just as fine of a job in most cases, and then you don't have to spend the over 5,000 supplies and rare materials to research them. It would be incredibly useful if you could research them independently, but that's simply not the case. I love their view range and city speed. That's actually quite nice, and I think the AA will be more useful than many think, despite the attack values being a bit low. And their ambushing capability is honestly out of this world. Overall, I would say that yes, they are worth it. I think you could do a lot with 10 of these running around the battlefield. 25 attack against aircraft from a stealth unit is nothing to sneeze at, but ultimately special forces are not used very often in the first place, and if you were to get Security Council for Season 12, you'd be getting these and the Elite UGV. I personally love the UGV, but most people do not. So while I would personally get Security Council for the Season 12 unlocks, regardless of if I was a content creator or not, I could see why some people might pass on this season. Let me know what your thoughts are on this new unit, and if you plan on investing in this season. I'm genuinely curious. Well, I think that just about wraps things up. Thank you for sticking till the end. Not sure if my next video will be a tutorial, event video, or whatever, but I guess we'll see. See ya.